Ever stretched for weeks and your hips still feel tight? Yeah, you might be stretching the wrong problem. What's good, Fit Fam? It's your girl, Cori, and let's talk about the real reason that your hips are perpetually tight. You may foam roll, use the massage gun, pigeon pose, and stretch until you feel like a pretzel. And 20 minutes later, you're back to feeling stiff again. But why? We've been taught that tightness means that the muscle is too short and that it needs to be stretched longer. Most of the time, your hip flexors or surrounding muscles are screaming because they're actually weak and overworked, trying desperately to hold your body all together because y'all know we carry everything in our hips, trauma, emotions, all of it. So today we're going to cut through all the BS and I'm going to give you the simple test to figure out if your hips need to be stretched or if they need to be strengthened. Knowing the difference is how you stop wasting your time and start making lasting gains. So number one, key point, the truth about being tight. Tightness is a cry for help. It's your body's way of saying, hey, something's up over here. Think of a tight muscle as a tiny muscle security guard holding the door shut because the big bouncer, which is your core and your glutes, went home early with no notice. The guard isn't too short. He's just exhausted and stressed. Stretching him out is just temporary because it temporarily loosens his grip and gives him a much needed break, but that doesn't solve the underlying problem. Let's talk about your hip flexors and your desk life. We've talked about this a few times already about how we sit all day long in the car, at the desk, crocheting on the couch, whatever it is, we spend a large portion of our time sitting, which leaves our hip flexors chronically short. Yes, but often weak in their lengthened range. When the glutes are asleep, glute amnesia. If you want the video on glute amnesia, I made a whole video about it. You can watch it here. The hip flexors take on the workload. They get angry and they report for duty as tight. If you constantly stretch and the tightness returns quickly, it is likely that stability or strength is an issue for you. If you have a true acute pull or limited range of motion after a workout, then a gentle stretch is probably going to be your best friend. But for chronic everyday stiffness, you are going to need strength. Key point number two, the actionable test, which is the strength versus stretch test. Here's how you test to find that out. First, we're going to start with what is called the standing marching. You're going to stand up really tall and you're going to lift one knee toward your chest as high as you can. Hold it there for 15 seconds. If you start shaking, leaning, or you can't hold it for 15 seconds, your hip needs strength. Your deep core and your hip flexors are weak and they're struggling to stabilize you. So you're going to need to train the control in that lifted, flexed position. Now, if you can hold it steady, but the front of your hip feels a sharp pinch and not a stretch necessarily, and you can't lift your knee that high, you likely have a true range or flexibility issue, or maybe even an impingement. And in that case, you want to make sure that you talk to a pro who can actually see you in person and help you work that out. And you're going to need some gentle mobility work that will help you before starting to train. Now let's get to the prescription and give our hips what they need. If your hips needed strength, which is the most common issue, the hip flexor builder is going to be a seated straight leg raise. Nice, slow, and controlled, or you can do the slow controlled standing marches. Don't worry about weights right now. Just focus on slow 3-second negative motions. Remember, the negative motions is the lowering motion. Then you're going to want to get into your glute power, and that's your bouncer when you're needing some strength. Single leg glute bridges or banded clamshells with some resistance bands are going to help you here. Remember, these muscles are loyal, but they do need to be told when it is time to fire. And if you guys recall, I did do a video about that as well. So you can go ahead and check that out too. Now, if your hips needed stretching, which is the rare winner, static hip flexor releases like the classic couch stretch, but hold it for a full 60 to 90 seconds to actually signal a change in your nervous system. Or lateral openings are good for that as well. This is a 90-90 stretch. This is great for hitting the hip external rotations, and it is perfect for a post workout cool down. I love the 90-90 stretch. The takeaway here is that your body is very smart, so it knows what it needs. We just have to listen to it. When you feel tightness, it's a signal. Don't just silence the alarm. Find out what the fire is. Your strength work, when done mindfully, is the ultimate form of self care and the key to long term joint health. And don't forget that healing is also about addressing the root cause, whether it's emotional trauma or muscle weakness. Stop covering up our symptoms and let's get to the truth so we can get the desired results from our workouts. All right, go try that March hold test and let me know in the comments. Are your hips tight because they're weak or because they're short? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more no nonsense wellness and fitness tips. And don't forget to check out the Melanin Wellness Podcast for an entire wellness vibe. I'm always rooting for my girls to win. Now let's go. Talk soon. Bye.